Hello and welcome to Politics as Usual, episode 4 with the Octaverse. I'm Ayub.
And I'm Mohsin.
Alright, let's get down to business. What's going on? What's the latest, Mohsin?
There's been a lot of interesting things happening this week in politics. Let's start from the UK and then we'll go overseas. The Labour Party, obviously, as everyone knows, they lost the election last year. And they wrote a report to figure out what exactly happened, what went wrong. And surprisingly, there's a few interesting things in that report which they've been claiming are problems with Jeremy Corbyn. But what this report says, let's have a look at some of the main outcomes. They said that Labour wasn't left-wing enough.
Right.
Under what Ed Miliband was proposing, a Labour which was more centrist and people wanted a more left-wing Labour. What they actually did, how they compiled this report, is they had people go out and speak to Labour voters, random Labour voters in different areas, and ask them, why do you think Labour didn't win the election, etc. What problems did you perceive with Labour? And this is what they come back with. So if Labour's not left-wing enough and Jeremy Corbyn is a lot more left-wing than Ed Miliband, it would mean that he is what the people actually wanted.
When did they start putting this report together? When did they start looking into it?
After they lost the election, I would assume.
Alright, so they've actually managed to put together a report quite quickly then, by politician standards.
Yeah, well, if you're talking about the infamous report that's supposed to come out on the Iraq War, what's it called?
Chilcot Inquiry.
The Chilcot Inquiry. That's been, I think, purposely pushed back more than a few times.
Anyway, you were saying?
So they found Labour wasn't left-wing enough under Ed Miliband, and also Ed Miliband wasn't as strong a leader as David Cameron. They perceived him as being a little bit weak.
That's right, though, he was weak.
Right, and so one of the issues with what people are claiming with Jeremy Corbyn is he's a little too authoritarian. They're calling him authoritarian. They're calling him a kind of dictator type figure because he's so strong. Yeah, it's what they were lacking in the last leader.
But
the Labour Party was lacking.
All right, what else is in that report? I'll move on to some problems I have with Corbyn.
Those are the two main findings. To be honest,
right.
Yeah.
So with Corbyn then, it sounds great. His ideas. You can't argue with it at a moral level.
Yeah.
How the hell is he going to achieve that stuff?
Sure, he has.
Because the public ultimately, when they're going to vote, they need to see some credible plans, and they need to have assurance. Number one, people are worried about their money,
Yeah.
economy, right? And how's he going to guarantee all of that? And at least with the Conservatives, they see a proven track record. Economy's supposedly being put back on track.
Well,
more people are out spending.
I think with Conservatives, what we see is a lot of spin. So their spin doctors are out like in full force. And what they're doing is, when you say the economy is improving, what's actually going on is when he says we've created more jobs, they passed a law to allow 0-hour contracts. And so person having a job which is 0 hours does not guarantee that they will be paid at the end of the month, because potentially, even though they are in work, they're still signing on or getting some type of benefits to survive, because there's no actual work out there for them. So they did a lot of different type of spin like that in the last government that they held, and they're probably out there pulling the same moves again. Now with Jeremy Corbyn, I actually disagree with him having to kind of give his plan of action, because please name me a politician who has ever given a logical plan of action before being elected. We'd be hard pressed, because nobody ever does.
That's true.
Yeah, they actually never do. Even going over to the American election campaign going on at the moment. What's his name? Bernie Sanders. He's spoken a little bit about it, but all he's really said is we will be raising taxes, and then by raising taxes we will do this, we will do that. He's gone into it a little bit more than any other politician that I've seen in my life ever go into it. So there's an interesting, I think, paradigm shift with him, and potentially Jeremy Corbyn is probably watching that very closely, because Bernie Sanders is leftist, And I'd assume Jeremy Corbyn is watching very carefully to see, what type of things he could emulate from that success.
He definitely needs to do something to get rid of that perception. Because the people I've been speaking to have that perception.
Well, what perception?
That, it's morally, it all sounds great.
Yeah.
But how is any of that achievable? Yeah. So he needs to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might not mean, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that he gives his entire plans.
Yeah.
But he has to have his own spin doctors.
He does need his own. Yeah. Which is actually one of my criticisms of Jeremy Corbyn, is his spin doctors have not been out there enough, and his media campaign isn't quite as good as it should be.
Part of that might just be the fact that they are diametrically opposed to what the media stands for at the moment, and that those spin doctors are part of that system. Maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know. I
think it's clever in a sense, not to have a big push yet. Give it a year or two. And then start changing public perception, getting closer to the next election. Because if you start now, you're gonna kind of burn yourself out. Whereas if you start like 2 years out and you start a little bit, then a year out from the election, that's when you start. You let it kind of hit its peak, and then eventually you'll peak around the time of the election. Your propaganda will peak at the time of the election, which will be a perfect time to.
But at the same time, he needs to start building momentum.
Yeah, and his momentum is the name of his lobby group as well, man.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So.
Right. So what else? What else is happening?
What else? Well, the Prime Minister made some interesting comments this week, didn't he? He spoke about Muslim women and the need for them to learn English, and he linked it to the reason he gave was so they could help fight extremism and confront patriarchy, which is present in some families.
Right. So by learning English, they're going to confront that. It's all right. So here's a Muslim lady.
Right.
Who comes into a home. And the husband's sitting on the couch watching Bollywood films, right?
Okay.
And she says to him something. She says something in English. Oh, right. Why don't you take the kids to library? The husband's gonna turn around and say, "Ki hoya beja thalle."
Okay.
The guy. Well, why has he excluded men from it? That's the first thing. Right. When you're talking about learning English, why is he picking on ladies, number one? Yeah. Number two, why Muslim ladies in particular? And how the flipping heck is that linked to extremism?
Well, a lot of people have, they've looked into his whole policy. A lot of the press, they've been annoyed with his linking it to extremism and said, there's no causal link there.
I mean, look at, those stories that we've had in the press over the last year or two in the country, about kids going off to ISIS, and they've interviewed their parents. Yeah, a lot of the time the parents that spoke, they're both speaking English, both the husband and the wife.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So maybe they should not teach them English.
One of my I was speaking to someone about this, and he said, look, that generation of women, as in our mother's generation, who my mum doesn't speak English, and one of my friends, he was saying the English are lucky that generation didn't speak English, because if they did, they would have been in trouble. They would not be able to handle those women. And actually,
they are very strong, those women.
Yeah, very strong. Yeah. And actually, the kind of propaganda that Muslim women are, under the thumb of the man and is a patriarchal society, etc. That's people who have no clue about what actually goes on in Asian households. Yeah. Yeah, women run the show. It's like men, all right, they'll kind of let a man kind of do his thing, but when it's time to put the foot down, they know how to put the foot down. So that whole propaganda thing, I read an article where somebody said his whole propaganda, it stinks of kind of old age colonialism, where it was like the white man going to save the brown woman from her oppressor. Yeah. So it's an interesting link actually, that why women. Why not? And say the Wasi put out a tweet the same day saying, why not extend that, that benefit and that right to learn English to everybody in the country who doesn't speak English? Yeah.
The amount of times I've been to London and been lost and asked somebody, directions, they've replied in some foreign language or they're like, no speaker English.
Right.
And normally you can tell if they're tourists. They don't look like tourists to me, they look like residents. Right. Particularly because I was in a non-tourist area.
Well, everybody from Europe who's coming into this country, do they all know English? Do they all speak English? We have, I don't want to mention any countries, but we have communities coming over from different countries of Europe. I've experienced a lot of them actually don't speak hardly any English at all. And I remember going to one of my tenants actually to get some money off him. He owed me some rent money, and I was like, I was like, money, give me money, and I was like, I had to open my wallet and show him money from my wallet, like I want my money, kind of thing, because he didn't really speak English. So yeah, this whole thing about only Muslim women, it seems like a bit of a targeted attack for some reason, where he's doing what the old age political trick of diverting the attention of the masses when they perceive a problem, divert the attention to one minority community, and it's just that same thing.
Yeah. And on top of that, not only is he diverting the attention to a minority community as a whole, he's using a stereotypical image of that minority.
Yeah, under the thumb women.
Yeah, exactly, under the thumb women.
Yeah, well, women are living in an extremely patriarchal society, and
Yeah, exactly. Now, surely the Prime Minister's not that dumb. Surely not, right? Or maybe he is another Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, he's not that
What
bad.
is he playing at? But I mean, look, to be fair to him, in the speeches he's done on the wake of certain terrorist attacks, he has said, look, this isn't the fault of the Muslim community. The terrorists don't represent the majority of Muslims, da. And then for him to say something like this, it's entirely irresponsible.
When it comes to the Muslim community, he's not got a consistent message. He's bipolar, as a minimum. He just changes as much as the weather in Manchester does. Sometimes he's like, they're good. Sometimes, look how evil they are. You can't make his mind up. But there's a few interesting statistics. They said 190,000 women speak little or no English. And so his aim was actually, although he did say, we need to get rid of extremism and this will help and all the rest of it, and the whole, thing about integration was thrown in there. But it seemed like his aim was to get women in the workforce, to give women what he claimed an equal opportunity to actually get into the workforce and earn money for themselves, etc. So it seemed like a very, conservative agenda of creating more robots for the workforce, which
well, nothing wrong with them coming out and working and doing their part for society and integrating. Nothing wrong with that. But if that's what he was getting at, why didn't he just say that? That's a fair enough message to be
I think again it's that kind of if he says it like that, it won't be from an altruistic place, it will be from a selfish place. So he will be saying, look, you lot need to change so you can benefit us. But rather what he wants to actually, how he wants to say it is, we are trying to benefit you in some way. We as a government are trying to benefit you. This will help you. But he put it across.
But it's going to help them anyway if they went out into society and integrate, got a job.
Yeah, it'll help the women, etc. But, politicians have to put their spin on everything, and they have to... the whole thing was idiotic. I mean, you could have said the same thing in a much nicer way, and the whole Muslim community would have actually supported it. One thing I was actually thinking about is, imagine, women from our parents' generation, as an example, who have been in literally probably no academia in their life ever, and the only language they know is the language they learned when they were kind of growing up, and they know a little bit of English, they might know a word or two. How are you going to throw them in academia and expect them after 30, 40 years or however long since they've been to school, how do you expect them to now start learning a language in an academic format and setting? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's hard enough trying to teach that generation technology. Imagine trying to teach them a new language. It's just not feasible. So I'm interested to see what they actually do with this. His threat, though, of either they learn the language or get out of the country, that was absolutely ridiculous, I thought. But
well, it fits in with the kind of shit they say, isn't it? Anyway, speaking of tapping into stereotypes of a minority. Did you hear about the article in the Sunday Times on the weekend? Okay, so they published an article which implied from the headline that an Islamic school in Croydon, in London, suspended a teenage boy simply because he had an interaction with a girl.
Right, okay.
Right. Now, and then after that, loads of newspapers republished the story.
Okay.
Went on to the Daily Filth,
Right.
the Daily Mail,
Okay.
and it reached India, went around the world. Now, the Daily Filth, their headline is Islamic school suspended a teen boy for interaction with a girl. And then in its bullet points, school says the interaction amounted to harassment. The 5,000 a year South London Faith School prohibits free mixing. It was rated outstanding by Ofsted for promoting personal development. Pupils' parents called behaviour policy nonsense. Department for Education is investigating the incident.
Okay.
Right, now just them points and those headlines, what does that tell you?
If I'm a member of the EDL, I'm ready to riot, basically.
Yeah.
You know, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
So, free mixing.
Yeah.
So
Well, what happened to freedom?
right. So no, wait. They're highlighting something called free mixing. So that is implying in the eyes of normal people that you're forcing
extreme
segregation on people.
Yeah.
There's an extreme agenda going on, and that given their headline that a boy suspended for interaction, and then what they say afterwards, the school says it amounted to harassment. They're basically making it sound like if you talk to somebody, it's harassment.
Yeah, it sounds like he just went past, said hi to his neighbour or something, who we recognise, and they just kicked him out of school for it.
Yet, the Ofsted rated them as outstanding, so they're creating suspicion against the Ofsted.
Yeah.
Right? So, the Ofsted did investigate them.
Okay.
Right? They looked into them
after this incident.
They turned up at the school.
Yeah.
And investigated them.
Right.
Right, now I've got a letter here of what the Ofsted said. Okay, so a guy called Sir Michael Wilshaw addresses
Don't read the
Secretary
whole
of State.
letter out.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay.
Salient points. But he writes it following the article in the Sunday Times.
Right.
And he wrote it on the 27th
Of
Jan.
So that's today?
That was yesterday. Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So the article went out Sunday.
Right.
And he's done his investigation
In a few days.
in a few days' time.
Yeah.
And published and written the letter and sent it out.
Right.
So he says, I can confirm that Her Majesty's inspectors investigated the circumstances of the incidents leading up to the exclusion during the inspection and concluded that the action taken by the school was proportionate and appropriate.
Right. Proportionate and appropriate.
Yeah, so inspectors established that the exclusion followed a series of lesser sanctions which proved unsuccessful in deterring this boy from behaving in a totally inappropriate and intimidatory manner, which left a female pupil feeling exceptionally uncomfortable and vulnerable.
So he was basically harassing her for over a long time.
Yes.
And then eventually they suspended him or expelled him, and even the Ofsted thought, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they were well within their right.
Yeah, exactly. And then he goes on to explain the fact that it runs as 3 separate units. There's a primary school, and the primary school is mixed, and then the secondary school is split by gender, and it doesn't differ in any way to an independent or a state sector school in this regard in the way it's split, right? Because we've got Manchester Grammar for girls, we've got Manchester Grammar for boys,
right? Yeah.
Right, and that's their prerogative. And apparently, it was the parents' choice, and there was a demand for it. The parents wanted it that way because they believe that they're going to get better standards of education that way.
There's actually just an interesting point on that. There was a statistic I read the other day where girls' schools, primarily girls' schools or females who go to all girls' schools, get much better GCSE results than going to mixed schools.
Yeah,
that's something interesting and pertinent.
So he did say as well, nevertheless, I wasn't comfortable about the school's policy statement on free mixing and the disjunct between this and the practice seen on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, they have one policy, but what's actually happening on the ground is different. So he asked for that to be looked into. His last paragraph is interesting. Yeah. I am pleased that a school with an Islamic ethos can effectively prepare both boys and girls to take their place in modern British society.
So he's saying that it's possible for them to be integrated normally into society.
Yeah.
As
funny, isn't it?
Yeah, as ordinary functioning citizens.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is the damage is done. I mean, the Ofsted letter, you probably had to go out of your way to kind of find that and will the Sunday Times publish that, do you reckon? Sunday?
No.
Doubtful. And then the Sunday Times did their damage. They published it, and probably the next day a whole bunch of others, newspapers obviously just followed suit, not doing their own investigation, and just published it and put in the perception of the public that, here these bloody Muslims again, suspending boys for saying hello to their,
Exactly, yeah. No, I mean, the Daily Filth might have gone on to qualify those headlines and bullet points in the article, given a bit more information. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, most people are not going to read the body of the article.
I mean, the only reason the Daily Mail puts them bullet points in there in the first place is because the people who read that newspaper maybe are not of the intellectual capacity to understand what a whole article is saying. So they just read the bullet points, and that's why they're there. Which, fair enough, people who don't have the intellectual capacity also need to be informed of the news, but
then, if you're going to put bullet points in, make sure you do something that's accurate.
Yeah, be fair with it, etc.
Exactly.
Right. But did you hear about the 10-year-old boy who got arrested for living in a terrorist house? Or he spelled, for his bad spelling?
Yeah.
So what actually happened is I saw his writing, actually. There was a printout of the actual paper that he wrote it on. Terrible writing, mind you, but I think my writing probably still is.
When I was a kid,
yeah,
I used to joke that people lived in terrorist houses.
Terrorist?
Yeah.
I don't think I even knew the word back then.
Oh, no.
I don't think I knew the word.
Throughout my childhood, before I was born, the word terrorist has been popular in the media.
Right, okay. But yeah, what he did is he meant to write, I live in a terraced house, and instead he wrote terrorist.
Yeah.
So I thought, I looked at the spelling and he spelled terrorist correctly. Yeah. So I think he should get a point for that, maybe. But I mean, if you look now, he's a 10-year-old. He's just gonna copy. In his mind, you can't really think that there's some type of difference between terrorist and terrorist. He probably he knows a term which he sees on the news all the time, and he sees it written out all the time, which is terrorist, and he just assumed it to mean terrorist.
Yeah.
And he thought, I know how to spell that. Wrote it down. What does a genius teacher do? Now, this is a 10-year-old boy. The genius teacher goes and reports this to the the anti-extremism officer in the school. It's all part of the government's prevent strategy, mind you.
Yep.
So that genius also suspends the boy, gets the police to come out and speak to him in his house. Obviously, a 10-year-old is going to get scared senseless at the police coming to speak to him at his house. And what's going to happen with his his imagination is he's going to be in school, he's going to be scared to write.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's going to be scared to express himself. He's going to be, that's it, his whole education, his whole let's help these Muslimics integrate into British society, it's gone out the window when you start doing things like this to kids.
And this was always a favour with the prevent strategy
and
the government's the policies that they forced on teachers.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is the prevent strategy actually had provisions in there because it was initially said, look, this is just targeting Muslims. And so they had provisions in there to fight all forms of extremism. So any type of right-wing groups or, like EDL or Britain First, etc. But I don't see that in implementation. Where is that in implementation? I've never heard of somebody from the EDL or somebody from Britain First or somebody from any of these far right groups, racist groups, Pegida UK as an example. They've not been touched. But what has happened is Muslims in education are being targeted for some reason. So it's a strange.
Hi. Anyway, what's going on across the pond?
across the pond, there's many an interesting thing going on. Actually, Donald Trump.
Our pal Trump.
Yeah, he refused to. There's a debate today, the final debate before the caucus. So before they vote for who they want to be the front runner of each party, the debate is being held by Fox News, and he's decided not to attend. And he announced it a few days ago, it might have been a week ago even. And what's happened is the whole media coverage has been about Donald Trump not attending the debate. Why isn't he attending? What's the reason? You know, what could be the reason behind it? Is it because he hates that lady? What's her name? Megyn Kelly, I think. He just doesn't like her. He just doesn't get along with her or something.
So while they're debating away, all the reasons, I've heard various different reasons. So one reason was that if he went to this particular debate, he's going to lose. And he knows he's going to lose. So he's being smart and he's not gone to it. Right? That's one view. Right? And I think the voting is in Iowa or something like that. Yeah. So he's said stuff about people in Iowa in the past. So he fears that he's going to get called on that. Right?
He's actually he's in Iowa, and today he's while the debate's going on, he's doing an event in Iowa. Yeah, he's holding a public rally in Iowa.
So this
to pull attention away from the debate.
He now says he's not going to go to this debate. Instead, he sets up a fundraiser.
For the troops or something. Which is
for veterans.
Clever politics. After
it is, but I wonder who the donors are going to be. Probably his mates that he's rung up and said, "Yeah, you can just come here."
Well, whatever it is, regardless. Yeah.
So that Fox News are busy chatting about, why is he not coming? Why is he not? What could it be? What could it be? And yet they're proving what it is by them doing that. Yeah, he's bossing the media.
Yeah,
he's being talked about.
Exactly, and actually, previously, the candidates relied on Fox News. They would, for the Republican Party, they would never be caught dead saying anything against Fox News. Donald Trump, on the other hand, he's had a fight with everyone on Fox News, and he's like, might as well have just swore at the whole media, and he's treated the media just like his tools rather than giving them respect as the other candidates have always done in the past. And
I admire that.
Way far ahead in
I've got to say, I'll admire that bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he is a tool. Donald Trump. And I don't believe he's clever enough to come up with these tactics.
No, of course not. Of course not. He's obviously you remember he tried to run in the last campaign as well, 4 years ago.
Nope.
He announced that he might run for president. That's when he started the rumor that Barack Obama wasn't born in America. And he forced him to get the birth certificate.
And then he got roasting from Barack Obama.
He did as well, yeah.
Barack Obama.
Yeah, and so obviously from then till now, he's got a bunch of very clever, very smart individuals running his campaign for him who really know what they're doing. And he's playing the media for a fiddle. One of my friends actually said, oh, this guy's racist. And I said, I don't think he's actually racist. I don't think he actually believes any of this stuff that he says. I think he just hates everyone equally. Because he thinks, multi-billionaire, he thinks he's better than absolutely everybody else out there, except for a select few of his friends. And even then, he'll treat them arrogantly because of how rich he is, etc. He doesn't have any issue with Mexicans. He has no issue with Muslims. He has no issues with anyone. He's being told to say some things. He probably thought, he's probably home one day, thought, I'm a bit bored. I've done it all. What should I do? I'll forget it. I'll become president. I'll just run for office. And he's been a public figure for a long time. He's been a celebrity figure for a long time. He must have took some acting classes. He's being told what to say. He's just going out there and saying it. I don't think he personally believes half the stuff he's saying. He's just doing what he has to do to become president. And
I hope he doesn't believe what he's saying. Well, I wouldn't rule it out. Because if you flip the coin, right, as a businessman, he could well be being smart when he's being open and tolerant with people because it's good for business.
Yeah, that's true. But maybe it's just...
And it could be that now...
Yeah.
Now he's showing his true face.
Could be. I mean, it's a 50-50, but
But the point is, he said what he said, and he's caused the damage.
he has, which is an issue. Like, what if he becomes president? What actually happens?
I'm still going to the States.
I don't think we're gonna get in. To be honest,
I want to visit the States. I want to go to the States.
Nah, you're the wrong skin color, mate. I apologize, but you're not allowed in. Anyway,
What happened to the freedom of a passage, the right to travel?
yeah,
It's basically bollocks.
he wants to ban Muslims, doesn't he? For some reason, it's there's a lot of Muslims being stopped going into the States now, already before Trump has even been voted in.
Yeah,
so
but this has been happening for years.
No, not as much as it's happening now.
No, is it just because Trump said what he said, there's more focus on it?
It's a potential possibility. But there's been a few people who previously have never had an issue and now suddenly having issues going in.
Yeah, but even if they are, it can't be because of Trump. He's not even in power.
No, there's a possibility that FBI or whoever runs it, they're probably looking at him thinking, yeah, forget it, let's just be a bit more racist than we normally are.
Possibly, you never know.
Yeah,
sounds far fetched to me.
I
But
don't know.
anyway, on that note, see you later.
See you next week.